Today's topic, as you can see, is recovery options. So we want to go over this particular topic just to give you guys an idea of what happens to your information when you delete it, when you overwrite it, where it goes, is it gone forever, can you get it back if you change your mind, etc. And I'm going to start with docs. So let's hop over to Pipeline here. And I'm going to start on a transaction, and you probably already know, because if you ever delete a doc, you see this nice little area over here with a little trash can that says deleted docs. But basically, if you or an agent ever deletes a doc from down here in the docs section, and agents can delete their docs, their own docs, up until the time that they're marked as reviewed. Admins can delete them at any point. But anyway, if you or an agent ever deletes a doc by coming here and saying delete and confirming that you want to delete it, let's go ahead and delete this one. And then come over here to deleted docs, you'll have an option to recover it or download it so that you can upload it back to the transaction or retrieve it for whatever reason you needed to. So if I click here and download it, it'll go ahead and open it up or ask me where I want to save it, right? And so I can retrieve it. Okay. Right now, these docs are stored in this little deleted docs area. In the future, the near future, you'll have the ability to, if for whatever reason you want to permanently delete them, you'll have an option somewhere over here to say permanently delete it, okay? And then in that case, it will never come back. You won't be able to retrieve it at any point. And that would be obviously a very deliberate decision, okay? So that is deleting docs. Also wanted to try, and you can do that either here from the transaction, right? Your deleted docs here, or if you are on unassigned, on your unassigned docs, you'll have a deleted docs area over here as well. Okay, and same permissions exist. If the agent downloaded their doc, deleted their doc, they can download it here, and admins can re-download any doc, any deleted doc. Alrighty. So that was docs. Let's talk about transactions now. In order to delete a transaction, it must be a master admin who does it. And let me head over to this transaction here. And doing so is a very deliberate act, right? You've got to come down here to the lower right-hand corner, click this delete this transaction red button. And then you get a fairly significant warning that tells you that basically this is permanently deleting. So again, very deliberate, intended to really delete the doc so that if you want to retrieve it, there is still an option. You can reach out to us and we can connect with our tech team to actually go through the archives and try to recover it. Typically, that is doable. So just want to let you guys know that even if you do permanently delete it here, there may be an option to reach out to us and get it if it's been done in error and you really do need to retrieve it. Again, kind of reserved for those extreme situations because we do need to connect with our tech team to go through the archives to get it. It's not something you can do yourself, but just so that you know that all is not lost in that case. Okay. And then next I want to talk about when data gets overwritten. Okay. So let's first talk about when you change data or overwrite data within a transaction. For example, let's say let's go back to this transaction. And let's say I want to edit this transaction and maybe change maybe the commission summary, right? Maybe it was 3% to listing agent and I want to change it. It actually turns out to be 2.5 to listing agent and I want to include her name. Right, Sally Smith. And then I save that. Any information you change like that, right? That in the commission, where'd that go? In the commission summary information field, or anywhere in this transaction, any changes that you make can be viewed in the transaction history, right? So that change that I just made here, where I changed it from 3% to listing agent to 2.5 to listing agent Sally Smith, I can see that the change was made, but more importantly, I can see what information was overwritten. Okay, if I ever wanted to go back and check on what used to be there for whatever reason. Okay, and again, that applies to any field for the most part in the transaction history. Generally, all of the previous values are stored here. In some cases, it doesn't make sense to track the old information, but in most cases you can come here and see what used to be there. Okay, again, all fields. Okay, so that's overwriting data within the transaction. Now, occasionally we will see some offices who will try to recycle transactions and overwrite the entire transaction, which I'm going to be upfront is something we definitely don't recommend. We have, like I mentioned, seen a few companies try that, and it just turns out to be a mess. I think in all the cases they reverted and stopped doing that. But again, not something we recommend for the reasons that I'm about to go over. But first, let me tell you that the couple of reasons someone might consider that. One is, again, they're just recycling old transactions. They've gotten old, they think they don't need them anymore, which typically they usually do for either auditing purposes or just historical documentation of information. But again, thinking that they don't need those old transactions, they'll go ahead and recycle those. But so that's the first potential reason. But what happens in those cases is a few things. One, your transaction history, like we were just looking at, becomes inaccurate, right? It's got all of this activity, every single bit of activity stored related to the previous transaction, right? So that becomes highly inaccurate. Also, you lose that ability that we talked about a moment ago. If you ever wanted to retrieve an old transaction that was deleted, you can never retrieve that transaction again. You've overwritten that information. It no longer exists to be recoverable other than being in this transaction history, okay? Also, it can cause confusion. Typically, the reason we've seen those few companies that try to do that, the reason we were even aware is because that a level of confusion arises because someone's searching for a transaction, maybe the person who didn't delete it or didn't overwrite it, and they can't find it and they're not sure where it is. They have no way of finding where it is because they've overwritten it rather than properly creating a new transaction and keeping that audit trail of the old information, okay? So it definitely causes confusion. And then lastly, it just involves a lot of work in order to be able to recycle it, right? You've got to come and delete all the checklists here. You've got to go over, heading back to the main page of this transaction, you've got to have a master admin delete all the notes associated with the transaction that have come in. You've got to go to the received emails, delete all of those, et cetera. And then, of course, there's an audit trail for all those deletions that you've done. So it just really is a messy process as well as a messy audit trail of everything that's happened. So again, strongly discourage you against that. Do that for those companies that we've seen and have seen them then turn that around. So just want to give you that sort of backdrop to make sure that you're aware of what can be recovered, what can't be recovered, okay, in those particular scenarios. The second scenario we've seen, or the second scenario that could possibly exist where you might be enticed to recycle is maybe you've just got one transaction, right? It was a duplicate or for whatever reason was just an illegitimate transaction that really does warrant being either deleted or overwritten. Definitely still in that case, encourage you to delete it it's not going to be as impactful as doing it on a regular basis like we just talked about. But even for that one, you may not want to ever search it again or ever recover it because it really was not a valid transaction, but you're still going to have that inaccurate transaction history, right? And it's still going to take just as much work to scrub that and clean it and make it clean, okay? Also keep in mind that if you've got a transaction and it was created in error and you really need to delete it, but don't want to lose that ability to, that part of your quota. If you delete that transaction within the same billing period that it was created, it's not going to count against your quota, okay? The system doesn't include deleted transactions when it does the count at the end of the billing period. So if it was created in that same billing period and you go to delete it, then it's not going to count against your quota. So there's no benefit to even doing that whole recycle method. Okay. And then last thing I wanted to talk about, because you can't talk about recovery without talking about your backups, is that if you keep your offline backups, let me go pull one up here. You've always got the ability to, let me drill up a little higher here. Right. So my backups here, I've got the ability to drill down, find my transaction and all the information related to it to derive that information. I can't reinstate it into the system automatically, like you would if you were to call us to reinstate a deleted transaction or to recover a deleted doc and then just upload it right back. Although you could actually get the docs from here and upload them back, similar to the deleted docs. But you do have the full body of information related to each transaction in case you ever needed to recover it for whatever reason. So you've got sort of multi-levels of that information existing in both your transactions history as well as your backups. And then again, those fail safes of calling us for the deleted transactions as well. So lots of different layers to make sure that if you need to recover, it is possible, with the exception of those overwritten pieces of data. The overwritten transactions, I should say. The overwritten data on the transactions, you can look at the transaction history for. Alrighty. And so that's all I've got for our recovery options.